Discover Help presents Stress-Free Living with Ray Samich and Mr. Stress-Free Ratanjit S. Sandhi. This audio program is an unscripted and unrehearsed conversation between Ray and Ratanjit. It is shared with you in hope of adding value to your life. We encourage you to listen to this program in its entirety to receive the full impact of its message. Sit back, relax, open your heart, mind, and soul to this edition of Stress-Free Living.
Welcome to Stress-Free Living. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Ray Samich, and I'd like to introduce you to my longtime spiritual brother, my radio colleague, and the co-host of the program, Ratanjit Sandhi. Ratanjit, how are you today?
Wonderful. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. And we are revved up and rolling. We've been having some good conversation amongst ourselves before we have gotten on the air here today. And we're joined by some of our wonderful Zoom friends on our Zoom call, which we invite you to be a part of as well. If you'd like to join us before, during, and after the show, we'd love to have you as part of our family. So we'll give you more information on that a little bit later. Ratanjit, the topic today is one that I think millions of people have asked at one time or another, and there have been books written about it, and there have been a lot of stories told trying to explain why bad things happen to good people. And our specific variation today for our show is, why do good people suffer? It doesn't seem to make sense by our human rationalization, by our spiritual upbringing, by morality, believing that evil therefore should be treated badly and good should be treated with goodness. Why is it that maybe ourselves or loved ones that are close to us that are good people, trying to do the right things, trying to serve people, help people, love people, guide people down the right path, why should they have to suffer? It doesn't seem that that's the way that nature should cause us to be when we're trying to do right. What's your take on that?
Fundamentally, the nature is designed to work on the universal law of cause and effect. But what happens is, when we do good things, supposing there's somebody who is constantly worried about the others, constantly does good things for others, but never takes care of themselves. So that cause of neglecting yourself eventually develops into an ailment. And we say, well, gosh, such a good person, why that person has this problem, this disease or this difficulty? Because you have to get out of yourself and treat this human body as a gift to you. You must take care of this gift as well as the gift which is given to you as friends. So we are basically become not an owner. The moment I think I own my own body, I am erroneously thinking, because everything is gifted to me. And I am only here to serve and take care of. So in the service mode, I'm serving the human body, which is gifted to me, as well as I'm serving whoever is coming in front of me and around me. So then you are basically using the same thought process of adding value, and you are not creating a situation which is neglecting some portion, some part of your life, as eventually that will become a problem. That is one thing. So go
Okay,
ahead.
so well, that's one thing, and I'm sure there are times where that is true. There's no question about it. But when you were starting to say that, I immediately brought to mind somebody that you and I know that passed away recently, and he was the biggest advocate and user of health. He believed in the vitamins and the nutritional supplements and monitoring all of his levels of his personal health, and he was rigid in that, and did not eat the wrong things, was very careful about certain foods that he ate and didn't eat, and yet he got cancer and passed. So as many people as you gave an example for, and I'm sure it's true, people neglect their own health, but there's a lot of people that are really careful about their health and they still get sick, and that's the ones that I really say, how could that happen? Why does that happen? Or you could have an example of a tornado that, or a fire, or something that just happens externally. And you say, why was that person a victim of that? When they, again, the cause and effect, there doesn't seem to be a cause that would create that effect. What do you think about those cases?
You know, fundamentally, uh, we think ourselves as a separate human being. We are all connected. So the cause and effect is one thing which, you look at your human body. All right. One is a direct injury. If I injure my hand or my foot, and I would pay the consequences. And then there are other organs which are not directly impacted. That is impacted by the food I eat, by the environment I live in, by the air I breathe, by the thoughts I have. They all affect our your heart, your kidney, your liver, and all those, right? So they are one. So similarly, when I knowingly or not knowingly put out the poison in the environment, and that poison, that we disturb the balance of the environment, and eventually that is going to cause this disbalance of the environment, is going to change the weather condition. This is going to develop the tornadoes. This is going to have all these other conditions. So we are all interconnected. So there is a very interesting quote by Martin Luther King. It says, it really boils down to this, that all life is interrelated. We are all caught in the inescapable network of mutuality, tied into a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. So, although I have single-handedly may not have caused the pollution or the environment disbalance, but somehow the consequence of my cause and effect means whatever action I take and whatever action I don't take, they would have an effect. So if I did not become aggressively advocate of the protection of environment, and eventually that environment is going to change, and the condition would be there to harm me. So all those conditions which we say, I have not done anything to have the tornado, which I have done.
So we've been talking about things that are from the outward that affect us, and the the poisons that we put into the environment, or our neglect for taking care of it and things like that. So these outward things. But a lot of what I'm referring to is also from within us, and not environment related, but it's human related. And by that I mean the negativity of our actions, the depression that we feel, the way that we treat other people. Do you think that that is the same, that your example of oneness also is the same for those kinds of things? In other words, if I show negativity to John Smith, and I put negativity, negative emotions into play between he and I'm making up John Smith just to because I know there are John Smiths out there, and there is no John Smith in my story that's real. But if I'm negative towards John or Mary or Bill or Susan, do you think that negativity that I have put out, that anger, that hatred, that revenge, whatever that is, that's a negative emotion, do you think that works the same way? Do you think that floats in the air, in the atmosphere, just like uh, pollution in the environment, that also between Ray and John it happened, but now it affects the relationship or the life of Ratanjit or Steve?
Absolutely, because there's pollution, material pollution, and there is also pollution of the thoughts and pollution of which mental pollution which we create. So when we create an environment of positivity, we all feel positive. And another thing which is very important is when you get up in the morning and you feel good, your health is great and you feel alive and active, it is more natural for you to act positive. But if you feel with aches and pains and those things, it is very difficult to be positive for you. So positivity begins with us. Until we create a state of mind which is gratefulness, and gratefulness is known to create a mental state and condition in our human body to exude out the hormones which makes the human body heal and we feel better. So if we remain in gratefulness mode, we create conditions in our human body to be healthier. And we are not grateful, and we are always waiting for something to happen to us to be grateful. If something what I desire happens, I'm grateful. And we don't understand the gratefulness, which is the basic reason to have the life in us itself is gratefulness. So, Ray, you have a comment to make?
I do, because I hear you and I believe you, and I believe it's true. But at the same time, you're establishing a different perspective on this that says bad things might happen to me. I might suffer because those two people were negative, or those people caused a problem. And because of oneness, because we're all interconnected, bad things might happen to me. How can I be grateful for that? How can I be grateful that says, if I'm doing my best to love and give and serve and share and do the right things for each other, for anyone that I encounter, do the best things for my own health, and respecting that this is a gift that's been given me. So I'm doing everything right. I'm trying to teach the children that were placed in my home the right things, and I'm treating my friends with the best kindness and love I can. And I'm doing everything right for the environment and for my job and my life. And then because those people did something, or those people didn't do something, because I'm part of the one, I get cancer, or my loved one dies in a car accident, or a tornado takes out my house. There seems to be a little contradiction there, in terms of how I can be grateful when I'm still doing my absolute best to do the right thing.
Fundamentally, when things happen, you have two options: either complain and feel sorry and blame. Other option is to accept and do something about it to change. When we accept and do something about it to change, we impact the future. We reduce possibility of that from happening again. And that is what life is. There are two thoughts we can park ourselves, either as a victim and blame everything and why it happens to me, and go into depression and you make it even worse. The other is, how can we are given amazing creativity, amazing mindset, and we can form a team of experts to help us if you don't possess the knowledge to solve that problem. And as a consequence of that team solving the problem, it can develop into a business, it can develop into an opportunity, it can develop, and that is how, if you look around, there used to be people who would die of heart attack. They would not even know why. Suddenly they'll accept, oh, God wanted to take him away, so they took him away. If there's no reason, they could not understand. And now, knowing what causes the heart attack, we have improved tremendously. Although we don't follow all the protocols and we still fall victim of that, but we have reduced the death rate of heart rate because of heart rate tremendously. And that's all because of finding out why it happens. So similarly, there are problems which are going to happen, which are going to exist, and we see those as opportunity for using our creativity to change the paradigm, to find the solution and to add value. And suddenly that itself would make you feel better. That is what purpose of life is, right?
We are on Stress-Free Living. We're talking about the inevitable things that happen in life where we see good people suffer. And it's hard to understand that. And that's what we're trying to explain today. I hope that you're not one of those good people who are suffering, but if you are, then hopefully we will give you some answers for your own life to make that a little bit more manageable and maybe give you an opportunity to grow. We're talking on Stress-Free Living. We hope that you'll stay with us. In just a moment, we'll be back. All right, we are clear now. And if anybody would like to ask a question that you want me to ask Ratanjit, or express a comment that we'll share on the show, please do. We have about 90 seconds. Open up your mic and share your thoughts.
I think one is the cause and effect, then the other is the laws of nature, which governs when a child dies or anything, which you were, Ray was telling about the natural calamities or anything, or any death, even if you are perfectly okay and is not a cause and effect, that is the grace of the divine also. So it is not always the cause and effect, it is the grace of the divine, how much life he has given you. So that factor has to be included instead of taking it only to the parameters of cause and effect.
That'll give us another branch to go down. Thank you. That's very good. I'll definitely pursue that. Anybody else have a little thought here to share or question to ask?
Ray, the only thing,
Go ahead.
Steve, you know, one of the things he started out, Ratanjit said was, well, when you wake up in a good mood, but the question in my mind is when you aren't feeling optimistic, when you don't have it, I think what he's suggesting is by helping others, that will improve your mood. But sometimes because of the way you feel, it's not so easy to move in that direction.
Okay. I can pursue that one too. Thank you. Anybody else? We have just a couple seconds. Maybe we don't. I'm listening. Nope, we're back. We are back on Stress-Free Living. Ratanjit and Ray, yours truly, Ray Samich, with you today. We're so glad you're with us talking about, well, suffering, and especially why do good people suffer, and interacting with some of our Zoom guests. And we're going to definitely bring in some of their thoughts and ideas that we can talk about in between. If you'd like to be a part of our Zoom conversation, please go out to our Stress-Free Living radio channel on YouTube. We have well over 100 different shows that you can watch and listen to. And also in there is our Zoom link. So you can join us on Saturday mornings when we are live for most Saturdays, and presenting these shows and interacting with you before, during, and after the program. Ratanjit, I want to start with one of the thoughts that was shared by one of our wonderful Zoom guests. And that is, we always want to, as human beings, we always want to understand. We always want to know why things happen. And you've just given us some really good reasons, okay, in the first part of the show. But are there times when you feel that they're just meant to be, things are just meant to happen, and our Zoom guest called it the grace of the divine? Are there times that we just have to say that we're not going to know the reason? We just have to accept that the divinity that gave us life ultimately controls what happens to us in our life, and when we're no longer going to have a human body, and simply agree to accept that there is a divine power that has the grace to know what is ultimately in the best interest of the world that has been created? Is that a part of this understanding?
You know, in our human form, no matter how smart we are, no matter how educated we are, no matter how resourceful we are, our approach and understanding is always going to be limited. Right? In this limited mindset, limited availability, understanding, and wisdom, we will never be able to decipher everything. So eventually, that is when we call that as we leave it to the forces or the universal forces and those which we do not understand. And whether we call it the divine forces or we call it God, or we are atheists, we call it nature, or whatever we call it. Those are certain laws which control everything. And we slowly trying to comprehend those laws. And by understanding those laws, we have definitely improved the quality and of life of human beings. So that is a journey. So you continuously uh, unveil and understand those laws, and that is what is purpose of our life is to accept, to unveil and understand those laws and implement those laws to improve. It is a continuous process. There are going to be constantly things which are going to happen which are beyond our control. And once we accept them, once we understand them, once we go on the journey to comprehend it, to unveil it, and if we can either have a mindset of just accepting, closing our eyes, and this is God's gift. So we stop the process of learning. God's gift is true, but God's gift is also within us as a creativity. We are also created by the same nature, same God. So our purpose is to constantly understand and unveil so that we can have a better life for all these concerned. Also, there is another point. When we call good person suffer, there is no good person. We are all relatively have certain quality and certain mindsets. So there are very good people who do horrible things. There are very bad people who do some great things. So this is a combination of things. It's a journey to constantly improve ourselves. So whenever we consider something as best, this is the best anyone can do, we put a full stop for development. When we constantly think of making our best better, we are constantly unveiling the possibilities. So our mindset would be there is always improvement, there is always learning, there is always reasons. And main reason for that is not to get medals or trophies or increase our position or title. The main reason for that is to serve. Serve who? The divine force which exists in every living being. And when we park ourselves in the service mode, all the difficulties are only a new opportunities. Right?
Ratanjit, I hope that having this conversation today and for our listeners, viewers that are watching this, I hope that they're able to grasp the value of this, the ideas expressed in this show, when they're not in that moment of suffering. Because in the moment of suffering, it changes everything. I think it reduces our open-mindedness to all of the reasons why, under the pressure of the moment, under the understanding of I'm going through this crisis and I just don't understand why I'm going through this, and they're limited. If we have this preparation opportunity, if you will, to think this thing through when we're not in that moment of that highest anxiety and stress, I think we can fall back on this type of a show. I'm hopeful. So with that thought in mind, you mentioned understanding. You say understanding of this. And in that moment, it's so hard to understand, why am I enduring this crisis? It's part of, I think, the problem is that we can only base our trying to figure out and understand based on what we already have done in our life. We can base it on where we're at right now. I'm doing the best I can. I'm working hard. I'm showing love and service, and I'm going to church. I'm living my faith. I'm living my life the best way I can, and then this happens. Or we base it on where we've been and what we've done and what we've accomplished and how good we've tried to live our life. The one thing that we can't at all grasp is the impact that this crisis is going to have on the future. How it's beyond our understanding at that point how this possibly could be valuable for the journey ahead of me, because we only can base our intellectual reasoning based on what we've had to this point. I hope that's making sense, because the question is, could these crises, these terrible moments, this suffering that comes across our path, could it be all about preparing us for the days ahead and the impact on life that we can have in the days in the future that we don't have the wildest understanding of what that could include? And is that a reason, if that's the case, is that a reason to say this is a gift? This is something to accept and be grateful for, because this is like God's reinforcement of our ability to do great things in our future. What do you think of that?
Fundamentally, Ray, every human being, every person who is born is destined to die. So
Yep. Nobody ever got out of this world alive.
Right. So our expectation is about 100 years ago, our human life expectation was 50 years, 60 years life. Now our expectation is 80 years, 78 years. And down the road, our expectation would be 100 years. Or so on. And so it doesn't matter how long the life is. I came here in 68 and looks like yesterday. Life passes by so quickly. It doesn't matter whether you lived 50 years or 70 years or 100 years. It depends on how you use your present moment in life. Basically, you extend your life by using your current moment in adding value, in understanding, in becoming curious and finding the answer. So that's what we are here. Our contribution is always going to remain here, and we are going to die. So let's give our contribution. So ultimately, it is all about what you do with this life. We are going to die sooner or later. So it's not, when we consider bad things or good things, so they are all relatives. Many times, what we consider bad are the most wonderful thing which has happened to us, because they give us the awareness, they give us the true reality, and we were able to change before the catastrophe happens. Supposing somebody is allergic to peanuts and they did not know, and they started, went somewhere and had peanut and had a major episode. So now they blame the episode one until they found the reason for that. They can correct it. So certainly they can avoid that episode from their life by avoiding peanuts. So similarly, there are so many peanuts which we don't know they're affecting our life. So it is for us to discover and unveil and keep them away. The one of the biggest peanut which is disturbing our life is our erroneous negative thoughts, which we have never corrected. And obviously, our human system has been given an amazing capability of habits. Anything we repeat many times, brain thinks, okay, this is going to be needed to be converted into a habit so that I have to keep my mind, other creative mind free. So once those habits are formed, we don't even know that those are habits. So we have to realize some of the habits, which are habits of worrying, habits of constantly thinking negative, and constantly believing whatever somebody says, not investigating. And those are our habits. They need to be changed to take control of ourselves, right?
You know, I love when you remind me about those types of habits because and we've done extensive shows on habits, um, good habits and bad ones. And we tend to think of habits, we I think most people do, I certainly do. I go back to think about habits about, how I drive to work and don't even think about it, how I get dressed in the morning and don't think about it, how, my morning rituals, my evening rituals, those are all habits. And so many of our habits are mental. So many of them are how we think, how we immediately go to our security blankets in terms of coping with news and information and processing thoughts. And it's hard to think sometimes that those are just not necessarily the best habits, not the best ways to do it. One of our Zoom guests on our last break brought up the idea that in the morning when you wake up, sometimes you're just so depressed. Sometimes you just feel lethargic in terms of addressing the world that you're about to get up with and meet and greet and conquer. And so, maybe it's because you had a terrible day yesterday. Maybe it's because you're just not feeling it in the morning. But in reality, that's just the habit, isn't it? It's a mental state that we default back to that we have every ability to overcome and to eliminate that and move to a positive approach. And I'm sure you would say the best way to do it is by starting the day in a moment of gratefulness, right?
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
you're
So
still alive, you are still breathing. So that's to begin with, you have to be grateful. Again, we feel bad, but we don't analyze it why I feel bad. So suddenly the things we feed this human system, whether it's food or whether it's air or whether it is the thoughts. Many times we don't consider thought to be actually which are we are controlling. So when you have a positive thought and a grateful thought, it gives the human body much more edge to correct and heal itself. So when we have a negative thought, it actually makes the human body sicker. And all those things can be developed into habits. Habit of thinking positive, habit of always taking a problem and becoming happy with it because it is given a new opportunity to unveil something rather than feeling negative and depressed from the problem. Right?
you open the show talking a lot about how the oneness of the world is present. And so for those that maybe have joined us late, how other things that are happening in the world, other people that have done certain things might be actually coming back around to impact us, either in a positive or a negative way, the oneness. But we didn't touch on something that you just said now, which is the oneness within us, within our own unique mind, body, and soul, and how the power of our own mind does absolutely impact our health, how our emotional state and mental state and the understanding within our soul, how that controls our oneness within our own human body. And I mean, we all have witnessed people that are in a whatever type of negative state that might be, depression, worry, anxiety, whatever, and how many times that person ends up getting physically ill. And it's no coincidence, right? I mean, we're one within our own body too.
Yeah, these are all cause and effect. Many of the causes we do not know, we will never know. We call it as a divine intervention. But eventually in this journey, sooner or later, we'll find the answer. But we will never find the answer of everything. So one problem we solve, when we find answer of one problem, there are thousands of new questions arise. So it's a constant unveiling of things, and purpose of life is really to unveil and understand and eventually convert into a something which can add value to everyone, environment and our fellow human beings. Right?
We're asking a question today on stress-free living. Why do good people suffer? Maybe we're suffering, maybe loved ones are, maybe we're just seeing somebody that we know in our community, in our workplace, whatever it is, and we're saying, why did that happen? They're such a good person. Why are they having to endure that? There's a lot of answers for that, and we're trying to explain them one at a time and open up some new thoughts for us to hopefully be better prepared for when those things happen in our own life, which it seems like inevitably they will. We'll be back. We have much more to share with you, and we're going to interact with our Zoom audience in just a moment. We'll be back on Stress Free Living. Okay, one last thought to get your thoughts and questions to us so we can ask them of Ratanjit on the radio show, and then we'll stay with you afterwards. Anybody have a thought? Open your mic and please share it. Crickets, Ratanjit. Silence.
Maybe I think we should define good and bad also. I think that this is not for this show, but because that is also that can be a different show altogether.
No, but it's relevant. That's where the
Yeah.
future comes in. You're right.
Yeah.
That's where we don't see the future. We don't know what's going to happen. Yeah,
Right.
good. Thank you. Anybody else have something we can add? Brian?
Ray, we started with, in the beginning of the show, we talked about proud and being thankful. And I'm thinking about the guest that said, when you start the morning and how you feel. Well, it's a new day every day. And, we have our routines. Each of us have different ones. And, for me, opening up all the blinds, opening up the outside and being thankful for the new day and how you feel. But then there's the challenges of life. And there's others that, are in some cases are very negative that are around you. And you try not to let that impact. And it really comes down to being patient. At least it does for me, because I start off and I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy I woke up. I'm above ground. Everything is good. The sun is shining, or if it's not, but there's so much to be thankful for. But then we run into the challenges that we're all up against. on a daily basis, and they come from so many different areas.
We are back on Stress Free Living, interacting with our wonderful Zoom guests as we do during these breaks. And once again, if you'd like to interact with us, go out to our Stress Free Living radio channel on YouTube. You'll not only find over 100 shows there that you can watch or share with others, but it also provides our link so you can be part of our Zoom audience. Ratanjit, getting some great ideas from them, which I hope to get to. But I have one more thought that I wanted to ask and make sure we cover before the end of the show. And that is, as I've aged and had the opportunity of being on this earth for many decades now, I've realized that we are making an impact on people in many ways in our life. But I think one of the ways we make the biggest impact is how we handle those difficult situations and how others watch us handle those. So it's kind of interesting because, maybe it isn't even the difficulty of what we're going through that is the biggest purpose, but it's how others watch us react to that might go on to motivate people to change their lives so that they then can go off and potentially touch millions of people with their life because of the motivation, the inspiration, the positivity that they gained in that moment. And so I sometimes wonder, does the divine allow things to happen just to provide kind of a learning moment, a teaching moment for others as they've watched somebody else endure suffering? Is that part of the whole oneness concept too? Is that part of how we're all interconnected? Because you never know what it is that's going to change somebody else's life.
One of our guests asked us a question, define good and bad. And
right.
To answer your question, we have to understand there is no good or no bad. Under the circumstance, a same thing can achieve a certain consequence, and that consequence can harm or help you. So good or bad means being a chemist. I give this example many times. There is a most deadly poison called potassium cyanide. If you touch that on your tongue, you immediately die. But when we use that thing intelligently, this is one of the most precious things we have because it is so reactive. It is used as to create intermediate for medicine. It is used to extract gold. It is one of the very valuable things. So it is not good or bad. We must understand where the right thing is used. Ice cream is supposed to be good. If you continuously eat, it'll kill you. So nothing is good or bad. It depends on the circumstances where we are using that. So again, ultimately, it is all boils down to understanding that we must find a use of purpose and understand this limitations of everything. And more we know and understand, more we utilize those things. So similarly, a person who is who's an amazing thief, he's gets away with all kinds of things. He has some amazing talent. We can use those talents in the right manners. Similarly, so instead of defining good and bad, we can redirect those situations and those people and those persons in the right direction so that they can add value instead of subtracting value, right?
Well, that makes sense, but you didn't answer my question, so I have to ask you the question again. Because do you think it's possible? Do you agree with what I had tried to present that said that sometimes it isn't even about us, it isn't about what we're enduring, about the suffering that is confronting us. The ultimate purpose of that might just be for someone to see how we responded, how we reacted to that. And in the bigger divine oneness plan, maybe we're providing motivation to someone we don't even know that will go on because of what they saw, what they learned in that to do amazing things. I am positive that we can find documentation of those types of things where person C was watching person A and B interact, and as a result of what they saw, person C went on to do something amazing. It's hard for us to think that we're not in the center of everybody's life, that we're not, that everything doesn't revolve around us.
So one of
But
the
the reality
consequences,
is it doesn't,
one
right?
of the consequence of adding value is that. So once you are confronted with the difficulty or put into a difficult situation, and how you solve that, not only you are going to add value to that situation, but you are going to set an example for others to follow. So that's a side benefit of that episode. So we have to continuously understand that all the difficulties are presented to us are to add value, to find a solution, to understand, to comprehend where things work. And because of the thanks to the difficulties, we have a society which is more developed. We have more tools to handle things, and they are all based on difficulties. Right?
So we've got just a couple of closing minutes. I want to revolve back around to the beginning of the show because you've used a couple of words a lot: acceptance, gratefulness, a lot. In those moments of suffering when we're enduring that, whether we're good people or quote bad people, and I know that that's probably not the way that I should frame this, but whether we've acted in a good way or we've acted in a bad way, when the inevitable suffering happens in our life, whether it's with us or with our loved ones that we have to witness and cope with, does it really come down, rather than trying to figure it out, trying to understand why it happened and how it happened and why it happened to me and how is this going to impact my future and other people's and everything else? What do you recommend first? Is it the moment of saying, I just have to accept this as part of my life? I just have to be grateful and accept and then move on from there. Is that what we should do as our first response?
Absolutely. Acceptance with gratefulness is really acceptance. Great acceptance with remorse is not acceptance. So when you lost both your limbs in a accident, and when you accept and set an example that you still add value to the universe in absence of your two limbs, you are inspiring so many people along the way. So that becomes your mission. And you would be grateful for losing the limbs. It sounds crazy,
Right.
but ultimately that gave us, you were an ordinary person going about your life and struggling, and suddenly you lost these two limbs. And now, because what you have done with your life, what you have inspired so many people, you are famous, you are successful, you are everything. So all the adversities, once we accept with gratefulness and understand that they are gifted to us to do something unique, and then that becomes an asset. The difficulty and the drawbacks becomes an asset. Ray?
Ratanjit, we'll have to let that be the last word. Thank you so much for your wisdom and love that you share with us every week. Thank you for joining us, all of our Zoom guests. And however you're listening or watching, we hope that we've added value to your life. Remember, we're all playing the same game. Have a great day. We'll talk to you again soon. All right, we are clear, and now's our time to interact freely. Open up your mics. I want to welcome, we have a new guest with us here today. I don't know how to pronounce, is it Jyoti? I'd like to welcome you and everybody for being with us. Go ahead and please feel free to join in the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. It's the first time I attended the session.
Thank you. Where are you from?
I am in Miami, but originally from India.
Oh.
Oh, very good.
How did you learn about this program?
I am part of the USA Gurbani part and group, and that's where I got this message.
Huh.
Very
Wow.
good.
In the WhatsApp. Yeah.
We're glad you're here.
Yeah. And so
Any thoughts on what you heard today?
Thoughts, I agree that in whatever happens in your life, acceptance and gratitude makes your life easier, because everything has to happen, which will happen. It's that attitude makes your life happy and grateful, and then you don't complain for anything because you accept that's God's will.
Wonderful.
Very good. Anybody else have a thought they'd like to share or a question to ask of Ratanjit? Quiet today, brother.
No, he did a good job.
I get
Thank you, teacher. Thank you.
Yeah, but this is a long topic, and we can have all the examples from both sides, because good, as he has said, good is relative to a person. I agree, and bad is also relative. But still, when we see even the people who have been doing gooder than life, politically, the evil forces or the negative forces always try to put them into trouble. So that is what we feel is having bad to him. But acceptability again comes into play. And that is the way the forces of life are, always. You see it always all around you. Always all around you.
You can get the goodness out of a bad person.
Right. That is also possible. But many times, those people who are bad, really, you cannot expect good. You cannot expect a sugar from a snake venom.
Well, that's what we label those people. And when
right, but that is used also for some medicinal purposes.
Yeah. What happens is you have to first earn their confidence and by doing something which is so unique and good for them, and then they are in a position to listen to you and understand you, and then you are in a position to eventually make a change in their life. But if you only lecture them, nothing would work. Hi, Sahil. How are you?
Hi.
How will you rate? Okay, sorry.
Go ahead.
Interrupted you, sorry.
How would you rate?
Guru Arjan's Shahidi on the atrocities on Guru Arjan and the young Sahibzadas as we learn in our history. Maybe this point others might not be. Because they were the goodness on one side, but the negative side had to overpower them.
Yeah, it sometimes it happens that you are not able to correct those situations, and then you have to. It's like a cancer. You use the medicine to cure it, and if you are able to cure it with medicine, that is great. But ultimately, if you cannot cure it, you have to operate. You have to get it out of your system. So those things are always there. There's somebody who has gone to such an extent, and we are not able to influence, and you have at that point you have to make sure that you avoid that or correct it in a different manner.
Okay.
Sahil?
Hello, I thank you. I really enjoyed the session today, and I completely agree with all the points mentioned today. And particularly, I think there was the peanut concept that I found really nice. And completely, everyone needs to have certain peanut experiences in order for us to revisit, learn more, and in order to propel us forward. So I think that peanut concept is what I really liked. So thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I got to say this. When you started talking about that, Ratanjit, I said, that is, respectfully, I said, that is so trivial. My back of my mind says, a peanut allergy. What are we talking about peanut allergies in this massive, deep spiritual topic? And then it dawned on me that is such a great analogy to use for the peanuts that we encounter in our life that we don't know we're allergic to. And it is like, I did a transformation within like 2 minutes of my own brain of going from thinking, I wish you hadn't said that, to saying, oh, I'm so glad you said that. And here, Sayal, you come back and say that was the most meaningful thing of the show. It's crazy. I always learn so much in these programs from you, Ratanjit. It's crazy. It was brilliant.
It was quite clever and innovative. Like I've never heard anything quite like it. So interesting.